Yeah, we've had to, hello there, you're welcome. We've had to interrupt our usual programming to bring you a live feed from Parliament, where the Electoral Commission Chairperson Jean Mensah is in the House to brief them on preparations ahead of the December 7 elections. Madam Mensah has had to appear today following her inability to follow up on Thursday, citing late notice. Let's take you there now. She's speaking.
Deployed, mainly the verification kits, the biometric registration kits, the verification kits, the software, and the data centers are functioning efficiently. I'll turn my attention to the 2020 voters register. Mr. Speaker, as you may be aware, the Commission has prepared a new biometric voters register in time for the election. We are pleased to note that the register embodies unique individuals only. To date, the register has a total number of 17,029,971 unique individuals. We are pleased with the credibility and integrity of the 2020 voters register. We are happy to note the collaboration and cooperation of citizens at all levels, particularly at the district level, as well as the magistrates who worked with the Commission to ensure that only eligible Ghanaians participated and were recognized in the process. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, we have some 32,621 persons who have been placed on the multiples and exceptions list. Of these, 18,619 persons engaged. Of these, we have 18,619 multiples and 14,002 persons who engaged in a variety of illegal practices, including underage voting and voting by non-Ghanaians. They are on this list that we call the exceptions list. Mr. Speaker, it's important to correct an impression that the 18,619 persons on the multiples list refers to individuals, unique individuals. For the record, this number reflects the total number of multiple registrations. As such, if a person registers 10 times, all 10 instances will be captured on that list. Therefore, the list is not made up of 18,619 unique individuals, but it rather comprises 18,619 multiple registrations. Printing of ballots. I think at this point it will be important to note that when we speak of the exceptions list, this is a list that was developed during the registration process when citizens at the grassroots level challenged the registration of voters for a particular reason. And these challenges were brought before the District Registration Review Committee, and the persons were put on a separate list. It also embodies those who were challenged, who were objected to during the exhibition process. I'm happy to note that a good number of them went beyond the decisions of the DRRO, the District Registration Review Officer, who is a magistrate, and went to the courts to seek redress. And of these, we note with pleasure and winning by 51 persons who challenged the objection to the register. That decision has been overturned, and their names have been included in the register. We have a similar case in Zabzugu, where 453 persons were objected to, and their names were not reflected in the register. They then went to court, and the court has overturned the verdict and the judgment of the magistrate, and these persons have now been reflected in the register. We are in the process of issuing them with their cards. Printing of ballots. Mr. Speaker, the printing of ballots is currently underway in 7 printing houses in Accra, namely Back Press Limited, Assembly Press, Fonstad Limited, InnoLink Limited, Yasako Limited, Checkpoint, and Acts Commercials Limited. A majority of our printing houses, which the Commission has used since the year 2000. As I speak, the agents of the political parties and the security agencies are monitoring the process at all the printing houses. I'm happy to report that the printing of the notices of poll for the 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections have been completed. In terms of the presidential ballot, the printing has been completed for all regions, with the exception of the Eastern region. And with the parliamentary, the printing has been completed for the Volta region, the Oti region, and the Upper East region. Mr. Speaker, currently the printing of our 2020 registers is currently underway, and we are confident that we will complete and distribute all registers well in time for the election in December. It is important to note that political parties have submitted their hard drives to the Commission. I've been informed that a good number of them are picking theirs up this afternoon. The printing of pink sheets, Mr. Speaker, will commence on Sunday, the 8th of November 2020, and all political parties have been duly informed and will monitor the process throughout the exercise. Recruitment and training. Mr. Speaker, the Commission has employed close to 233,632 temporary officials made up of returning officers and their deputies, presiding officers, verification officers, and name reference officers, as well as COVID-19 ambassadors for the 2020 election. A comprehensive training program has been drawn out for each category of these officials. We are confident that with the capacity building provided, our teams will be equipped with the requisite skills to enable them perform excellently and professionally on election day. I'll now turn my attention to the number of polling stations for the 2020 election. Mr. Speaker, the Commission has created 38,622 polling stations across the country. This is some 5,000 polling stations more than the 2016 polling stations. I'm happy to note that the threshold for the polling stations is not more than 749 voters per polling stations. It is important to note, however, that more than 70% of the polling stations have 500 voters or less. Security. Mr. Speaker, I would like to end on the very important issue of security. The Commission has, since the beginning of this year, engaged in continuous dialogue with the security agencies under the auspices of the National Security Task Force. To date, we have provided them with regular briefings and information to assist them to carry out their functions on election day. The information provided them includes locations of polling stations and collation centers, the locations of some flashpoint areas, among others. This collaboration not only happens at the national level, but trickles down to the regional and district levels, where our staff there engage extensively with the police. We intend to increase our engagement as we head towards the elections in December. Mr. Speaker, in a nutshell, this is our roadmap for a peaceful, credible, orderly, and transparent election in December 2020. I wish to assure you and this august House that we are fully prepared and ready for the elections in December, and we are working with our teams to ensure that the elections are credible, they are fair, they are orderly, they are transparent and peaceful. On behalf of the Electoral Commission of Ghana, I thank you for inviting us this morning to present our roadmap to our honorable members. We look forward to returning again next year to brief you and honorable members of the successful transparent, peaceful, and credible outcome of the 2020 election. So help us God. May God bless our homeland Ghana and make our nation great and strong. Let peace reign. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. Yes, honorable members. Two from each side, and then the leaders will conclude. Yes, honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, I ask these questions on behalf of the minority, so we have a number of them. First, we told that 30,000 names have been deleted from the document, and have these persons been, or these individuals, have they been contacted and notified? And has a list of these persons been given to the political parties? Two, why were there printing of more than the 5% allowable excess ballot papers? If you can explain. And again, has the identity, disparities, and names that were missing
on my right
during the registration exercise restored? Mr. Speaker, I'm being unfairly heckled by the majority.
Honorable, please take your seat for a time. I object to the sounds I'm hearing from my right. Honorable members, it will cease. Otherwise, we shall give this meeting a different tone. It is not necessary. Honorable, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to know, or we want some emphasis on how many polling stations, polling or voting centers will be used for this election.
Honorable, please sit. Those who are anxious to answer the question, please, you know, here we don't sit and answer questions or ask them. So you may stand. I thought you could go through this. Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sorry to take us back, but we didn't really relate to how many questions one person could ask. You just said that you are admitting 2 plus the leaders, so 3 from either side. I just wanted to know, because already my colleague who is on his feet is gone past 3 or 4. I want to know, so that we know that this is the limit. Otherwise, one could get up and ask 20 questions. So, Mr. Speaker, if you could just inform us.
Very well. Honorable, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Electoral Commissioner told us that there are more than 18,000 names on the double registration list, and these don't represent unique persons. We want to know how many unique persons are on the double registration list that she has.
And your last 2?
Mr. Speaker, we've been told that 38 million Ghana cedis has been spent on bikes and vehicles. Can she tell us specifically how many bikes and vehicles have been procured? And the last one is on COVID-19 items. How many items each and at what cost? We would want to know. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Honorable. Second question.
Yes.
We are compiling
the first question.
All through.
I'd like to know from the EC chairperson how neutral the Assembly Press boss, Mr. David Asante, can be, given the fact that Assembly Press is one of the press houses selected to print ballot papers, given the fact that they said David Asante contested the MPP parliamentary primaries at the Nkoko constituency. Our second question is, where are the people of Akpafo, Santro Kofi, Lolobi, and Likpe be casting their parliamentary votes? Is it in the Hohoi or Buem constituencies?
Yes.
Some of the biometric registration kits procured for the registration exercise were unduly slow in the course of the registration exercise. What assurance can the Commission give us with respect to the effective and efficient functioning of these same machines on election day? Third question, why has the Electoral Commission not published the names of those they say have done multiple registration? Further question, has the EC complied with court's orders to delete or re-register names of persons challenged, and which cases went before the magistrate courts after going before the district review committees? Further question, do you still have names of foreigners on the register? And if you do, how do you intend to prevent such persons from voting on election day? Last but one question, when will the special voters list of the security services be made available to the political parties for verification? Final question, what will be the mode of transmission of results from the collation centers at the district level to the national level? Mode of transmission. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question is quite simple. The chairperson has been accused of trying to disenfranchise some Ghanaians, allow the commission allow illegal ballots or possibly steal the election for the ruling party. I want to know whether she's doing any of this. Thank you.
Order. Yes, Honorable.
Mr. Speaker, a little reassurance. My understanding is that years ago, there used to be regional display of results during elections day. And my understanding is that some few years ago, the last election, it it was called off, as in results were not displayed regionally. So I want to know if you intend to see to the coming back of that system. To be clear on this, years ago there used to be transmission of results to regions before it goes to national. It was stopped. The last election wasn't used. So I want to find out from her if she intends, through transparency, to bring back that old system.
Leaders, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank you very much for the opportunity and to observe that even though the chairperson states that this is her first time she's been invited, this is not the first time we have made a request on behalf of the citizens of Ghana to want to hear her as public officer responsible for the conduct of elections. My first question is to ask whether manual verification will be tolerated on December 7th. My second is Zabzugu 435 by a court order, whether she accepts that the court indicted the Electoral Commission.
She's been briefing the House on what the Electoral Commission has done in terms of preparation towards the December 7 polls. And she's made a number of submissions and she's taking questions on them. I'll take you through a few of some of the numbers that she's put out. She says that so far, the new voters register that we compiled has 17,299, or 17 million, I beg your pardon, 17,290,971. Let me go through that again. 17,290,971. That's the figure of the number of people we have on our voter register. And then he goes on to break it down and give us those who are on the exception list. Now, if you're on the exception list, what it means is that you would not get the opportunity to vote. She also indicates that about 30,000 names have been deleted from the register. And so she has questions on the back of that as well. She talks about the printing of ballot papers. She says so far it is underway, the printing is underway, and it's been given to 7 different companies, 7 different printing companies. And she mentions all those companies. One of them, by the way, has come up for question by the minority. You had James Agalga, who is the ranking member on Parliament's Defence Committee, indicates that what is the position of the EC as far as the ownership of that particular printing house is concerned. Let's go back to Parliament right now.
The Speaker.
Order.
The Speaker, the Commissioner has indicated to us some savings that they have made in respect of the procurement of the biometric registration equipment and biometric verification equipment, even though these ones have been procured recently, are much more robust and, the Speaker, newer than the older ones. Is he in a position to tell us the savings that they've made? The Speaker, second, the procurement of indelible is something that we have always had problems with. Can we know the source of these procurements? Previously, they had been procuring from India, and yet when they came here, we saw that they were not as indelible as we were told. Can you assure us, first, the source of procurement, and then provide some assurance that these ones that are being procured are going to be really indelible? Speaker, the register, the date of certification of the registers. Can we be told of the date of the certification of the registers? And not to repeat what the minority leader asked about when indeed they are going to be transmitted to the political parties and all other stakeholders. And in the process, can you tell us what has been happening in the past? What has been happening in the past, the date of the certification of the registers and the date of transmission of these registers to the political parties? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Madam, you may answer our questions seated.
Thank you very much, honorable members. I would turn my attention to the special voters register. As we speak, the special voters register has been placed on the website of the Electoral Commission. For the first time in the Commission's history, we met with stakeholders who had applied for the special voters the window, I think on Tuesday, and we provided them with the soft copies of the register on pen drives to enable them advertise same on their platforms. And so that list has been made available to the various categories, the military agencies, the Ghana Police Service, the media, and so on and so forth. But the list is on our website as well. I'm happy to note that the soft copies of the register, and I did mention that the parties were written to and asked to bring their equipment to enable us put the register on there, and I'm happy to note that that process, the parties have picked up their register today. This afternoon, I think we've checked, and we have been informed that some of them have come and picked up the soft copies of their register. I think we also had the question of the number of polling stations. And I did mention that we have 38,622 polling stations. The threshold has been set at 749. However, some 70% of these polling stations have a voter population of 500 or less, but the threshold is 749. It's important to emphasize that our register only contains unique individuals. Nowhere in my presentation did I say that we had multiples. The way the system works is such that on the field, when you are doing the registration, it is offline, and therefore all the registration is captured and placed on pen drives, and the data is exported to the data center at the end of the day. So it is possible for people to register twice because the system is offline and it is not connected to each other. Neither is it connected to the database. And so once it gets into the database through the ABIS process cleans the data and isolates those who have voted twice. It uses both facial recognition and their fingerprints to isolate them. And that's why you have those persons on the multiples list. Those persons are not on the voters register. They have been isolated on the multiples list. At the moment, I do not have here the count of, the 18,600 persons, 614 persons, I believe, who are on the multiples list. But I mentioned that they are not individuals, but they reflect the number of multiples that are on that list. And we can go back and, drill down and pull out the number of unique persons on that list. I think we also had the question of the results transmission. And we mentioned that the results transmission, and I think in one of our presentations last week, the results transmission results would not be electronically transmitted. What we are doing is to set up the fax system and to have an email system. So the results would, of course, from the polling stations, once they collate it, they would physically take them to the collation centers. Once they are collated at the collation centers, they will physically take the results to the regional offices. When everything is done and the results have been signed by the parties, the forms will then be faxed to us, sent to us by email, and so on. And so it will be still manual. We will not transmit electronically. However, we would have at each of our regional offices the projectors where the public would have a glimpse or can have a glance and a glimpse at the registers, at the results as they come in. And so arrangements are being made to have projectors at not only the regional offices, but all the collation centers throughout the country. So in all the collation centers throughout the countries and the regional offices, we will have the projectors there, and the results would be posted and projected as they come in to enable and to ensure that level of transparency. I did mention that those who went to court to challenge the ruling of the district registration review officer, the magistrates, some of them have been successful, and the case in point is Efutu, where 51 of them were successful, and their names have been incorporated in the final voters register. So is the case in Zabzugu, where that 400 plus persons have been reflected in the final register. I know that you had mentioned that the composition of the commission was not properly constituted. But I must mention that we've had a lot of challenges there, and it took us, even when we set up the DRLC, it was very difficult to get representatives of the various bodies on that committee, because there was some intimidation and so on, and there was it was very difficult to constitute. And I believe that this is what we've seen, and this is what reflects in the decision of the court. But it was difficulty. I must say that our officials were there, but you needed to compose and have a traditional authority there, somebody from the educational service and the police. And every time, they kept on withdrawing from the committee. And I think these are some of the challenges that we face. But the court has spoken, and we have upheld the decision of the courts. We have applied the decision of the courts, and those persons have been, reflected on the register. I think the question was raised also about foreigners on the roll. I think, to the best of our knowledge, with the help of the citizenry, we can confidently say that our register does not contain foreigners. If it comes to the attention of the commission that there are foreigners on there, I think the proper agencies will be noted, and steps will be taken. And once it is proved that those persons are foreigners, we would take steps to ensure that they do not vote. With the issue of manual verification, we did mention, I think it was a point that I missed in my presentation, that to date, we do have on the register, please permit me, we have a total of 17,029,971 eligible unique voters on the register. Of this number, we have some 547 who we have put on the list we call the deficit. These are persons who registered, but for some reason have not been reflected in the register. What we did was to drill down and do a thorough analysis of the end-of-day reports vis-a-vis the registers per district, per polling station and per district. And we found that there were a number of persons who had registered but were not on the register. They were captured in our end-of-day reports, but for some reason their details were missing on the register. So we drilled down and we have identified all of them. And so we are going to bring out a list per polling station, per region, per district and polling stations of this 500 plus persons who registered but are not on the register. Their names are going to be captured, their addresses, and we are going to put that out in the newspapers so that if people know them, they would be able to, because we've tried to reach out to them using local media through telephone calls, because some of them have their numbers there. For some reason, for some of them, we have not been successful because they do not have telephone numbers. What the commission is doing, however, is that those persons will not be disenfranchised. What we are doing is to send their names to the polling stations where they voted, to ensure that their Form 1A and Form 1C, the source documents that they use to register, are sent to those polling stations. And so if those people come to the centers, they would be allowed to vote. And as I speak, there's roughly 547. But that list would be published in the newspapers with the details of the polling stations where they registered. The commission believes that they did register and they are entitled to vote. And a provision will be made for them on election day. They will be manually verified.
Honorable, you may answer. Honorable, you may proceed.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for accommodating me. My question was specific. Will there be manual verification on 7th December? You have indicated you have indicated your
I don't want any presiding persons on my right. Order. Honorable Minority Leader, proceed.
Mr. Speaker, my question is specific. Will there be manual verification of the 17,029,000? Now she has indicated 547.
Now the commissioner has parliamentary language. Now the commissioner has. We don't use he, she. The commissioner has.
The commissioner has. The chairperson of the commission.
Very well.
Will there be manual verification on 7th December? What numbers should we expect? Or every voter, as the commissioner have identified, 17 million will be electronically verified.
Thank you. Yes. Madam Chairperson, you may include that in your next answer. Please go.
Thank you. I think that the CI 127 makes provision for manual verification, and therefore we have made provision and arrangements to have manual verification forms sent to all the polling stations across the country. It will be allowed. But however, we are confident that because we have two modes of verification, i.e. fingerprint and the facial recognition, this will be reduced substantially. The reason why I mentioned the 547 was just to inform the House, the Honorable House, that there were some persons who were missing, so we are making provision for them. We do not intend to disenfranchise them. So with them, we are very much aware that they registered, they are not captured on the register, but provision would be made so that when they go there, they would be allowed to vote. However, manual verification forms would be made available to the polling stations. But we believe that because we do have facial and fingerprints, that will be reduced substantially. In the past, as you know, we only verified by the fingerprints capture. And we know that we had issues with the templates that were used, in the sense that the quality of the fingerprints were so poor. And therefore, people had to wash their hands and sometimes apply, I'm told, Coca-Cola and so on, to ensure that they could be manually verified. Thankfully, the technology that has been employed is very robust. We didn't have any challenges with verification when we deployed and piloted the verification devices. Additionally, because we have the facial recognition feature, we envisage that if you do have issues with your fingerprints verification, the facial features can be used for verification. So we are not expecting a high number of manual verifications. I think we were asked the question about the 5%. Why is the Commission allowing more than 5% of the ballots? I think in the past, the practice has been to allow or to put in place some contingency of 5% with the ballots. And that's exactly what we are doing. The policy has not changed. However, we are aware that the ballots are printed in booklets of 10, 25, 50, and 100. Therefore, if you go to a polling station in particular where you have, let's say, 91 persons, you would use a ballot, booklet of 100. That 5% would add up to some 96 or so, and it will be left with an excess of 4. So this is what we are finding. There are excesses. Unfortunately, we are not able to print the actual numbers of persons at booklets for actual numbers. So you go in for 91 persons at the polling station, you do the excess of the contingency of 5, you may have some 96 ballot papers, but the booklet has 100. So you have the excess of 4. And you see that you see these excesses across the country, but it's not a deliberate effort. And this is what has been the practice for many years. And I think the political parties and the agents are well aware of this. So I think and then also with the Assembly Press. Assembly Press has worked with the Commission printing ballots since the year 1992. Indeed, I think the Assembly Press and Back Press they are the longest printing houses that have worked with the Commission printing both presidential and parliamentary ballots since 1992. The question that you raised was with the credibility of the Managing Director. We do not know the Managing Director. We know the systems that we have employed, because I do not believe that we are confident in the transparent systems that have been employed. And you may be aware that the party agents are briefed about the printing houses. They monitor the process for 24 hours. They have a 24-hour chain, and nobody leaves the center. So irrespective of who manages the center, I think the processes that have been deployed are transparent and credible, and make it difficult for anybody to manipulate the votes. But I think it may be of interest to note that in 2016, the Managing Director of Assembly Press also stood for parliamentary elections on the ticket of the NDC. But,
Yes, Madam.
I believe, however, that the processes are so transparent that irrespective of who stands for which election, or irrespective of what party a Managing Director belongs to, I can assure you, honorable members, that there's no cause for alarm. Our officers are there. We will not allow one ballot to go unaccounted for. So please be assured. And as we mentioned time and time again, our doors remain open. If you have any concerns, you can raise them with us, and we will be more than happy to address those concerns. But I can assure you that our officers are also policing the process of printing, and they will not allow the name of the Commission to be brought into disrepute. So please be assured Thank you. I think there was a question about the indelible ink, and I think it's a very good question, because we've had, instances where the indelible ink has not been as potent as it has been expected, and therefore after a few days or so, or after some use of force, one can, you see that the ink has erased from the fingers of others. But we are working with Kingdom Books and Stationery on this for the first time. And the reason, of course, we had some issues with the previous vendor to do with the quality of ink. And we have emphasized to them that, and they did bring samples, that the samples that have been approved are the samples that we expect to receive. And we are paying particular attention to this. The indelible ink, the source is from India, and we are paying particular attention to it. We'd like to assure you this is one of the things that has come up very high on the Commission's agenda, and it's something that we will scrutinize to ensure that the samples that were brought from India are indeed the samples that we would be giving us. And we could also, if you don't mind, maybe share one or two samples with the House for you to test, and we will take them back. I think we had the issue of the 30,000, whether that list has been given to the political parties, and I can say with surety that that list has been given to them. The main register has been given to them. The list containing the exceptions list has been given to them. The multiples list has been given to them. The special voters list has also been given to them. The name reference list has been given to them. The proxy list has been given to them. And so you can be sure that you'd have this list. We also intend to publish the register on our website and to make these lists also available on our website. So this is something that we are working on, and very soon all these lists will be on our website to enable those who have engaged in this and in some of these acts of crime to know where they stand. But it's important to mention that with the multiples list, this is not something that individuals do. It is a system that picks them up. And when there are gray areas or areas of uncertainty, an adjudication committee is established. And that committee is made up of the political parties' representatives and the commission. And they sit together and they determine the rules, and those rules are applied with their knowledge and their consent. And so this is the process that happens with the multiples. With the exceptions, those lists come really from the field. They come from the districts where people challenge the registration of persons at the registration process, or they object to their registration at the exhibition process. So these lists are not generated solely by the Commission, and we will publish them in due course. I think you have this, and then the certification. And then I know that the majority leader asked a question about the robustness of the kits. And I can say for a surety that the registration kits were very robust. As I mentioned during my presentation, at the start of the exercise, we were looking at, we had set the bar at 100. That every kid should be able to do a maximum of 100 persons per day. And indeed, we have charged our officers to try to reach that target. This is because in the past, we were only, the best we could do was some 70. It was rare to do 100 persons per day. The best the previous kids could do was 70. But when we went to the registration, it became obvious that you could register. People were registering 280 persons per kit per day. And that shows you the robustness of the kits. Again, we didn't have the challenge of kids breaking down. I mean, it was very, very rare and that you find kids breaking down as in the past. And so the registration was smooth. And I believe that attests for the fact that we were able to register the over 17 that we have mentioned, and so we believe that the BVDs will equally function very well. As you are aware, we piloted some 5,000 340 pieces during the exhibition exercise. And the reports have come back, and they are very positive. The officers were very happy with the use. It was very easy to verify. You didn't have difficulty. You didn't have to go and wash your hands or apply Coca-Cola or apply the usual local inku before your fingers were able to be captured and verified. It was very easy. Once persons came, it was very easy to verify them. And so we are confident that those kits would work efficiently and effectively on election day. I'm not sure, Majority Leader, if you asked about the cost. I do not think that we have the cost here, but I can say that I know for a fact, I do not have the total cost, but in the past, since 2012, we bought the biometric verification device. The Commission was buying it at a cost of $917 per one. And it came with a RAM. The size of the RAM was 1 RAM. Today we are buying the same kit for $346 for 2 RAM. Indeed, when we had presented our budget, we were looking at 1 RAM at the time, and it was $336 for the same device with 1 RAM. We were buying it for $917 for one before. When we tried the samples with the 1 RAM, we realized that it was too small because we were capturing both fingerprints and the facial, and therefore we had to increase the RAM to 2 RAMs, and that brought the price to $346 as opposed to the $917 per device that we had bought it since 2012. With the verification device, we were buying it for $5,250 in the past. Today, the registration device, we were buying it for $5,250 per registration device in the past. Today, we are buying it for less than $3,000. I'm sorry, we were buying it for $5,250 in the past, the registration device. Today, we are buying it for less than $3,500. Mr. Speaker, I think we mentioned that at the right time, at the appropriate time, the Commission will do a report on some of these savings, not only on the kits, but also on materials as well. Not only on kits, but on materials as well. Thank you.
We will answer that one too. Mr. Speaker, there was a question about the regional distribution of the registered voters. I think Western region we had 1,187,566. Central region 1,568,352. Greater Accra 3,529,181. Volta region 924,117. Eastern 1,641,215. Ashanti 3,020,141. Western North 468,683. Ahafo 316,938. Bono 653,609. Bono East 594,617. Oti 358,552. Northern region 1,050,015. Savannah 298,402. Upper West 469,739. Northeast, 289,535. Upper East, 659,309, giving us a total of 17,029,971. The minority leader asked a question about the population density in terms of the Greater Accra and the Ashanti region regarding the provision of security. For that one, when we finish with the registration, we use 33,367 centers for the registration exercise. And the chairperson mentioned that we have reduced the threshold at each polling station. So any polling station exceeding 749 will be split into two. If it's more than double 749, it will be split into three. So before this exercise, the Ashanti region was leading in terms of the number of polling stations. But as we speak now with the split, the Greater Accra will be leading. So technically what it means is that the split centers may not be extra polling stations. The original one will be A and the new one will be B. So from all intents and purposes, the Ashanti region has more polling stations. And Greater Accra is also compact, so that explains why. And there was a question on the distribution of the BVDs. Madam Chair mentioned that we have acquired 74,800 BVDs. And when you look at the number of polling stations we are using, if you multiply by 2, it will be almost 77,000. So what this means is that for about 95% of our polling centers, we are going to have 2 BVDs per each polling station. But we are going to have a few, almost about 2 to 3% of the centers that will not be able to have 2 BVDs per center. So what we are going to do is that for the centers that are split, they will normally be between 400 and 450. We will give them 1 BVD as a backup. But based on our checks and the piloting of the BVDs, we understand each BVD should be able to work for about 12 hours. And when you look at the voting time from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., at most, if people are in the queue, up to 6 p.m., you are looking at 11 hours. So almost 95 to 98% of our polling stations will have 2 BVDs. So 1 as a backup. And a few of them will have 1, 2 centers will have 1 as a backup. I think there was a question on minority leader asked, why is it that you have facial recognition? And still some people were able to register multiple, etc. I think Madam Chair explained that during registration, the registration was not done online, it was done offline. So the kids were not speaking to one another. So it was possible somebody will register at this registration center, then move to another district or within the same district, the person will be able to register again. And those are the things we take them through the ABIS system, and the system will identify them for us. There is a final question on the certification of the register, which my colleague will come in.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson and your team. All too soon, we have exceeded our targeted time, even by half an hour. We all knew from the beginning that we could not possibly exhaust everything. I have been informed that if any honorable member has questions that he or she may want to ask beyond this, they will be well accepted by a letter, a short note at the commission any time from Monday. So at this juncture, we will want to please order. We will want to thank Madam Chairperson and her team for the Electoral Commission for attending to the House and answering our questions and discussing pertinent matters with us. Thank you very much, and you have the opportunity to I say you have the opportunity to continue tomorrow. Thank you very much, Madam. You may please leave us.
So this visuals coming to you live from Parliament. This is happening right now when Jean Mensah, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, was invited to Parliament to brief the House on preparations ahead of December 7, which is barely a month away. She has been answering various questions on various issues concerning special voters. She said that the list will be put on the Electoral Commission's website. She also says that the register itself has been compiled. She mentions the figure that's over 290,971. That figure, that number, he says, is being given to the political parties. They were asked to bring in their pen drives. She says, as of the last check, the political parties have picked up those details today. We'll be crossing over to Joseph Opoku-Gakpo to get a wrap with him before we go on a very short break. But she also talks about 500 voters who were put on a list, a separate list, which means that those people will not be on the main register, a voters register. But these were people who registered but could not be found, some way, somehow, could not be captured into the main register. She said 500 of them, the list will be made available to all polling stations. Result transmission, on that one, she said that result will not be electronically transmitted, but that it will be sent through the polling stations to the collation centers and then to the regions, and from the regions they will be put together and sent, faxed through the emails to the Electoral Commission headquarters. She talks about those who were challenged and then the manual verification, etc. Let me get to Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, who is following this for us in Parliament. Hello, Joseph.
Gifty. So the EC boss has just ended the presentation. In fact, it ended on a note that some MPs appear to have the allocation that would eventually have had a lot for that. I gather that the minority will be addressing the media any moment from now to respond to what she's been telling MPs. But just to highlight a few of the issues as well, she speaks of the fact that currently there are no foreigners on the register as far as the EC is concerned, and that they had counted on the support of the public to get a lot of them out, and that going forward, if anyone thinks there are any such people on the register, then that can be done in terms of they should bring that information to their notice so they can get them out. She's also been responding to the concern that the Assembly Press, which is a state printing agency, is actually one of the organizations that's printing the ballot papers. And its director, David Asante-Boateng, contested as an NPP parliamentary candidate in the Nkoko area. She says they, as a commission, they know the organization, they don't know the individual. But she went on to reference that during the time of the NDC, the director then was also a parliamentary candidate at a certain point in time. And so for her, that doesn't compromise the processes with the printing and all. She's also been disclosing that they would have a maximum of 79 people voting at each center, which is how come they are trying to get the numbers as low as possible so that then there isn't congestion. But there will be more than 60,000 polling stations. They would have the situation where about 233,000 temporary officers are being recruited to help with the processes, including COVID ambassadors who will be at the various centers and ensuring that the various protective equipment are available, at the various centers, so there isn't any case of the COVID-19 cases going up, even as the voting goes on. So she's brought her address to a close, and the indication is that if any MPs have any further questions, the EC has its doors open, and that MP can go ahead with the necessary communication to them in writing, and the right response will be provided for that.
They fairly answered most of the questions that came through the members of Parliament, but something else happened in Parliament. And of course, we'll have a lot of time going forward to look at what the EC chairperson came to say. We understand that the Speaker has also declared the Fomena seat vacant based on the letter from the New Patriotic Party that the incumbent member of Parliament, Amwako Andrew Esiama, has been expelled from the party. Give us a bit of that when we return, after we take a look at this particular story.
So, in the words of the Speaker, the actions of the said Member of Parliament has brought him into a situation where the seats, he's actually vacated his seats. Those were the words that the Speaker used. that per his actions, he's gone ahead to vacate his seat. He began by giving a broad background that the communication from the NPP had come that he's been expelled from the party, and per the expulsion, then when you look at the constitution, it becomes untenable for him to continue holding himself as an MP on the ticket of the party. The speaker indicated that he got a response from the said member of parliament as well to the complaint of the NPP, and now he's come to a decision on the way forward with his ruling. So he went on to catalog what he thinks would be an interesting situation if, for example, this said gentleman goes ahead to win the upcoming race, and he's coming into the next parliament as an independent candidate. But sometime after the December 7, we would have a situation where the House will continue sitting and he'll be sitting as a member of the NPP. In Professor Michael Kwe's words, it creates a lacuna situation as far as the law is concerned. And the framers of the law on how situations should be dealt with when people cross carpets did not anticipate this particular situation. And he has used his judgment to pass a ruling on what the case should be, and that ruling is that per the actions of the gentleman in question, it means he's vacated his seat by his decision to have contested as an independent candidate going into the next election, which resulted in the NPP expelling him, which means that he's no longer with the party on which ticket he came to Parliament. So
if you're just joining in, the Member of Parliament or the former seat has been declared vacant, as the NPP has written to Parliament for the House to do so. Joseph was just helping us with a lot more of what the Speaker said before he declared it vacant, and some more now. Our live crossover to Parliament has taken over the time for the weekend one. We'll bring you more news at Prime, Joynews Prime, at 7 p.m. later today. But there's more news at myjoyonline.com. I'm Gifty Andropia. If anything else happens in Parliament, we'll let you know and we'll bring it to you live.